What are you finding difficult about becoming a professional mix engineer? Because there's probably a lot of listeners in the same boat wanting to become more established as mix engineers. And I can guarantee we all, possibly even Lord Warren himself, at some point has had the same considerations.
I think what I've found personally most difficult is trying to understand what a pro level mix sounds like. How to get there. The problem is with YouTube is that there is a lot of different ways to do things. You know what I mean?
Information saturation, a huge problem,
big time. And I think that it's knowing what to take in and what not to take in. So for me personally, what I've learned is the best thing for me is to practice, and learn how to fix your own mistakes. I think the problem is with YouTube is that many people go to channels and go to these pro engineers to almost fix their own problems and be like, I want to sound pro, so I need this technique, I need that technique, I need to use this bit of gear, I need to use this plugin the way that he used this plugin, I need to do this technique. When what you've got to realise is, for me personally, one of the biggest things I learned was the difference between an amateur and a pro is understanding the when and why. It's understanding the context of when to do something, when you need to use a certain plugin, when you need to use a certain technique. Because I think when I first started out, I used to have loads of different techniques. You know what I mean? I'd have a rear bus, I'd have loads of parallel compression, I'd have this EQ into that EQ, and that compressor set that way because such and such used it on this album. I was using tons and tons and tons of different plugins because I thought that's what I needed to do because so-and-so did it. When what you realise is that these guys are one person. So for example, like CLA will normally do like an 1176 into a 2A on a vocal. That's something that he does quite a lot. Where another engineer, they might use an 1176 into a very level compressor. Some other guys might actually do completely clean compression. You can't blend them all together. You've got to make a decision, and you've got to make a decision that sounds right to you. So everything in my channel, it's all about basically me experimenting with what I want to hear. That's why you do all my shootouts, so I understand, right, that's the sound of what I want to go for. So the 1176 LE2A thing I used to do, but I don't do anymore because I understand the sound that I want to get. Sometimes I'll go for it if I want a really kind of saturated vocal that kind of blends into the mix, but a lot of the times I'll use like a clean compressor to shave the peaks, and then I'll use maybe different compressors to level that out. I don't always go with the Timpi Vari level. Sometimes I'll go with titanium from Acustica, which is the Tube Tech CL1B. I don't always do the same thing on every mix, and I think that's the key, is experimenting with your mixes and the tools that you've got to fully understand them, so you can understand the when and why. So you can sit in a mix and you can go, right, that's the vocal, that's the drums, that's the bass, that's the guitars, right, what do I need to do to this mix? I need to do X, Y, and Z to get to my end destination. How do I do that? Right, I've got this tool, that tool, this tool. I might not need any tools. It might be automation, it might be someone else. It's all about the when and why. And it's all about making your own decisions. To me, that's the biggest thing. When you watch these pros, the decisions they make are their own. They don't sit there and go, oh, like Andrew Shep's done this. Oh yeah, or GGP does this. No, they go, I do this.
I know a YouTuber who does do that. they will remain nameless. And he does some very questionable things because he's been told to do it by someone famous. And I know this because I sent him some stems of one of my own tracks and did a couple of videos on it. And I sent it to a few people thinking, is this odd? Why is he doing that? None of this needed doing. For example, putting a gain plugin on every single channel to get the gain up to -6. I was like, why? If it sounds good, just, go with it. And that's what faders are for. But yeah, I think a takeaway from that is that on YouTube, and if you're an aspiring engineer, the internet and YouTube is saturated with millions of people giving their different tips. Now, I think it's worth, as with anything, I think it's worth studying as many different music production mixing techniques. Be aware of mastering to see how your mixing affects the mastering. Be aware of engineering so you know why you're getting something from a client that sounds the way it does. What have they done that's helped it sound good, and what have they done that's helped it sound bad? And a lot of mixing is down to fixing, but ultimately there's so much information out there. As you've said, experiment with different things, and over time you will gain the knowledge of multiple different techniques, some of which will stick with you, some of which you'll forget, some of which because you'll be using some over others because you'll prefer them, you'll like the process and you'll like the sound. Ultimately, experience will help you create your own style with mixing.